Welcome to this Saturday stream. It's evening for me. I don't know what time it is for you, but whatever it is, I hope it is good. We're starting this stream, and as always, I would like to start it by asking you to please give a hand to the moderating team, because without the moderating team, this community would not exist. At least half of this channel would not function properly, and we would have trolls, Russian propagandists, and just plainly stupid people disrupting our proper discussion here. So I want to welcome everyone that is here. I want to say thank you for appreciating our content and what we're doing, and please join me in saying huge thanks to the moderating team. Thank you so much, guys. It is really appreciated. Welcome everyone else. So we're starting today, and today is going to be a stream where we're going to be talking about many things. We're obviously going to get to the questions. But we have now kind of a week passed after the elections in the United States, and for obvious reasons, I don't need to explain them to you, there is now a lot more discussions whether or not Ukraine will be forced to negotiate, whether or not Ukraine will be forced to surrender their lands, surrender to Russia. Some try to, again, pull all of the bad old arguments about surrendering, about the fact that this is supposedly the war about land. People are bringing in the Istanbul negotiations that happened at the beginning of the war, where it was basically proposed for Ukraine to stop existing and sign a document saying that, but it's been dishonestly presented as it's supposedly some kind of a reasonable document. So today we're going to talk about a lot of these things. I'm hoping you will ask questions, because as always, you're the community. In a lot of these streams, you are driving the narratives. But I will have a monologue or two for you to talk about, like, what's the situation and what we should be expecting. So as always, I appreciate very much Captain Copenhagen here, chipping in with 17 Danish kroners. Hi G, Slava Ukraini, all hail the mods. Absolutely hail the mods. Thank you so much, Captain Copenhagen. Thank you so much for staying with me for so incredibly long. I really appreciate it. As always, guys, I am calling for you. While I really appreciate your support for this channel, I really appreciate the financial support you're giving to me, and it's going to be relevant later in today's video. But I really would like you first and foremost to help the Ukrainian armed forces, because my needs are nothing compared to the needs of the Ukrainians. So first and foremost, if you have some disposable income and you're considering that you like this stream, you like myself, you like the information that I'm presenting, first and foremost, do not donate to myself, but rather please go to the link that will be posted right now by the moderators and participate in our campaign, where we're gathering the funds for the 9469 Sniffing Brigade campaign, where we want to try to get like 3 very advanced trucks with ability to lift heavy cargo, drone protection, really good stuff, and a lot of the additional drones for the Ukrainian Armed Forces units. So please participate. Like, yes, the moderating team is already posting the links. I see it in chats. Participate in that. Otherwise, I really appreciate your support. If you want to support me instead, also, not just Ukraine, that is fine as well. It is appreciated. So let's start. While people are joining, let's kind of set up certain things before we get to your questions and we start interacting. So first and foremost, right now there's a big discussion. What is the Trump's plan and what are the certain picks? We're going to talk about the parts of the Trump's plan that is supposedly there. But I want to underscore this, that we have seen absolutely nothing concrete, right? Because if you want to say something concrete Trump said, then he said he's going to solve the war in Ukraine in the first 24 hours as he's going to get nominated as a president-elect. That obviously didn't happen. So that's why I'm not rushing to conclusions. We've heard a couple of talking points that he stated, but I'm not completely sure that these talking points will be part of the plan. Maybe he still needs to flesh it out a little bit. So that's why, and I'm giving, I know what you're saying, like I'm giving a little bit of a charity here, but we're going to talk about the things that he said, but I want us all to be very clear that so far nothing even remotely official came out from the Trump's incoming administration. Second, with regards to his picks, It's important to understand that while he's nominating certain picks right now, and it's very clear what's the criteria that he's using to nominate picks, it is loyalty. So, which is good. And with that, like some people speculated that he's trying to reward loyalty and he's nominating these people, but he potentially is not expecting that they will be confirmed. So he potentially is expecting that maybe Senate will reject them, therefore making his life easier, so to say. As like, well, I've been like, you trusted me, you trusted in me, I tried to put you there as a person that really supported me. Well, you got rejected by the Senate, therefore, well, tough shit. But I don't know. Like, the point is, we just don't know. So until his picks are confirmed, we should not be talking about them, at least not very seriously. There are, I think, a couple of them that we can kind of expect that the Senate will pass for sure. That is for Trump. Then let's talk a little bit about Olaf Scholz. Olaf Scholz recently called Vladimir Putin, and I've read that transcript, transcript is somewhere like communique that came out from that conversation with Vladimir Putin, and it was a nothing burger. Like, they talked literally about nothing. It's absolutely clear that Scholz right now has really tough situation. If you haven't seen in some of my videos priorly, he's in a very tough political crisis right now. His ruling coalition collapsed, and it's unclear for him how he can stay in power. As far as I understood, there's going to be a no confidence vote scheduled for 15th of December. He initially planned it for January, but I think there was a pressure from the opposition to schedule that vote before Christmas. So supposedly that vote will come before Christmas, unless it was not confirmed and I'm just not knowing. So this is something where you can correct me a little bit in chat. But yes, so Olaf right now is pretty much on somewhat of a last leg, and he's trying to make himself relevant again. So either he wants to tap into the I don't know how to say, like, but he wants to maybe tap into the audience that really don't want to support Ukraine, that really hates Ukraine and Ukrainians, and he actually wants to kind of present himself maybe as a person, like if there is like a snap election suddenly coming in Germany, then maybe he can win out certain votes from certain population. But yeah, it's a tough sell. Nothing kind of suggests, everyone is suggesting that most likely the alternative for Germany is going to win, which is a common trend. But it's not clear how alternative for Germany can form a coalition. They don't really have a lot of coalition partners. There is a little bit of talk about the alternative for Germany, BSW, but let's not go for that. So most likely we're going to see a coalition between the current Scholz biggest critic, Merz, and his Christian Democrat Union, and Scholz's party, SPD, its so-called Grand Coalition. Maybe the Greens will come in there as well, I don't know. But the point is that I'm making is that that's political. There's a lot of political pressure on Scholz. There's a lot of preparation right now for the new election. So I feel that it was mostly a stunt that he called Putin. And obviously Zelensky said in no uncertain terms that it was a mistake. So President Zelensky denounced Scholz's action. Those are kind of the introductory parts that I wanted to say. Let's get back into discussion today. So, a couple of new super chat. Tommy oh my god, Tommy Niskanen. So, sorry for mispronouncing that. Thank you so much for 5 Ukrainian memberships. Appreciated. Hans Eriksson, thank you so much for 100 Swedish kroners. Appreciated so much. Nathaniel Campbell, sorry for mispronunciation. Thank you for $15. Hello, G. How are you doing? I hope you're feeling well in Slava Ukraini. I'm optimistic about Ukraine despite all of the recent unfortunate news, including Trump's picks in his administration. Yes, it is a little bit bad, and we're going to talk a little bit about it today. I'm feeling better. I'm still a bit dizzy at times, like I'm feeling a bit nauseous, but medicine is working pretty well. Like it's really keeping me going. Quite okay, so I'm able to function and see if I'm even streaming today. QR, thank you so much for 250 Czech Corona. Hi Georgios, here is a small token of appreciation for you and moderating team. Thank you so much, QR. Really appreciate it. Oh, I know I've pronounced this name already many times, but let's do it again. Taisteluk Kalkuhuna. Thank you so much for being a brother in arm participant for 19 months already. Incredible. Screw any thoughts of Ukraine surrender. For sure, for sure. Let's be very, very clear. So actually, no. Let me jump into this point about Ukraine surrender. There is a lot of things that I feel like that if Ukraine agrees to, it's going to be ultimately surrender, right? For example, giving up land, stopping aggression, some kind of a Minsk III negotiations, and we must understand that it's probably is surrender. And I definitely am not pushing for this, and I definitely not stand for this. However, we must understand that it's going to be ultimately up to the Ukrainian people to decide what is going to happen, all right? Like if they are going to be swallowing that tough pill for their to forgiving the torture of children to Russia, forgiving killing of the innocents to Russia, forgiving the capture of their cities, destruction of their cities. If Ukrainians can do that, who are you or who am I to talk to them and tell them what they should do, right? So that's kind of like the basis point at which we should even just generally start. And this is my basis point for sure. And that's why when I'm stating that Ukraine shouldn't surrender, it's just fundamental basis that if they decide to surrender, that's something that we will just need to accept. Then with regards to surrendering as a proposition, yes, I don't think there should be any surrender, any kind of unacceptable for Ukrainians resolution of this war should not happen, and I feel very strongly that Ukrainians should fight. And this was a hard kind of decision. I say it right here, but it was actually talked over very, very extensively. As you know, my wife is Ukrainian, and we talked with my wife, right? And I said, listen, I do not know what is tougher for me. Can I ask Ukrainians to fight? How inhumane it is to ask people to die while you're sitting here in Denmark and doing jack shit, essentially, sitting looking at the camera. And I know we're doing a lot. I know on paper a lot, but in my brain, I'm still sometimes leaving at nights. I cannot fall asleep because I feel that I'm not doing nearly enough of what we could, and I need to do better. I need to do more, and that's kind of just sticking with me still. It's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still pretty bad. But then second option to say, okay, well then don't fight, then seek peace and surrender. Well, if Ukrainians don't want it, is that a good position to have? It's a very hard position to say anything to Ukraine, whether they should fight or surrender, because it's tough. Well, I kind of thought about it, and my decision is potentially more bloodthirsty, but I fully stand behind it. I think Ukrainians need to fight. And my decision is guided first and foremost, and because continuation, basically, discussion of the surrender, is because if Ukraine just surrenders right now with, we're not discussing details, but generally the plans that are being speculated, just give Russia the territory, just trust Putin that he's not going to invade again, whatever, yeah. What it basically signs off is it leaves Ukraine open for a future invasion. And if Ukraine is open for a future invasion, it doesn't matter whether it happens or it doesn't happen, it dooms any prospects for the country to recover. It dooms the prospects for people coming back to Ukraine, and they're going to probably stay in Europe because it's safer. Some people, knowing that right now, that male population is prohibited of leaving Ukraine. So a lot of people will leave Ukraine, that is the male fighting population. Ukraine will be literally forced to turn into the war camp. So they will not be able to ease up their economy to a normal levels. They will need to basically become a proper state that is prepared to war at all times, at all costs. And more than that, it's also dooms, as I said, some kind of long-term investments, just because the fact that there might be a war happening once again. So I feel for the future of Ukraine as the country, for the future of Ukrainian children, for the next generation of Ukrainians, I feel that now is the moment where they can actually fight. There is still enough support from the allies, and I feel that Ukrainians should take it. But obviously, again, coming back, if Ukrainians will decide against it, I will have to understand that and take it out. So, Ali, thank you so much for kind words. Canada is asking, how is Blue Sky treating you? So, yes, I've joined Blue Sky. Blue Sky is basically an analog to Twitter, because Twitter turned in a absolute shithole. Elon Musk has has tweaked the algorithms to display specific messages that are favoring him, that are favoring Trump, and so on, just to turn on the election. And now it's a fully partisan platform. And a lot of people are advocating, saying that we need to fight partisan platform where the enemy is, so to say. Well, not my words, the people that have been talking to me. And I am stating that I don't agree, right? So you probably know that we're not really debunking the trolls here that much on this channel, because my position has always been, it's not about, what trolls do or what they say. It's about how much we're doing to counter that. So for me, doing our own agenda, saying our own things here, talking with our own community that is dedicating to help Ukraine and actually factually helping Ukraine is more important. And so far, this community and this channel's profits, we were able to get over $1,080,000 US dollars for sure to Ukrainian armed forces, and this is incredible achievement. I never thought that it would be possible in my life. So please tap yourself on the shoulder if you're still part of this community. It's an incredible achievement that we did here. And we're going to do even more. We're not going to stop. We're going to do more, more, and more, and more until victory. John Scott, we in Europe must step up, even if USA pulls out, believe we can help Ukraine. Absolutely, John. And there's even more benefits to it right now. Like, I'm going to talk about it a bit later when we're going to go to the segment about helping Ukraine. Stephen Elliott, Slava Ukraini, always enjoy your straight talking, Georgie. Questions, whatever happened to smashing the Kerch Bridge? Well, the Kerch Bridge became less relevant. That is one thing. Secondly, I am not completely sure that Ukraine had the approval to smash the Kerch Bridge, right? The same way that Ukraine doesn't have the approval to strike into Russia, it's maybe just because Kerch Bridge fell out of the kind of like, the target points. That's why it's kind of fallen out of the news cycle. But there might still be a restriction placed by Joe Biden and Olaf Scholz, because those are the two people that were strictly against Ukraine's targets in Russia. I'm pretty sure it's not a far away stretch to think that they also prohibited Ukraine to strike and take down the Kerch Bridge. One of the arguments why Scholz is not deploying the Taurus missiles was because Taurus missiles are so good at taking out bridges. So, Beyond that, with regards to the Kerch Bridge, is it was found out that fire that ravaged the bridge, it damaged the bridge a lot more intensely, and Russians are not willing to take their time to repair the bridge fully, because it requires like a significant rework. And instead, they've lessened the load. So there has been less and less trains, heavily loaded trains, going over the Kerch Bridge. Moreover, Russia already built a rail network that goes in the occupied south of Ukraine. So there is less need of the Kerch Bridge. To put it plainly, the moment for when Kerch Bridge and striking down Kerch Bridge was lost. Ukraine didn't get approval, and Ukraine didn't get weapons when that could lead to a significant change in the battlefield equation. All right, let's get to questions. Ali is asking, what is the point of Biden administration adding new sanctions to the Russia's energy trade if Trump's is just going to stop them anyway? A great point. So first and foremost, we must understand that sanctions is probably the thing that hurts Russia the most. I know, right? Shocker. I know. Everyone is going to be like, no, 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 but what about all of the military help that Ukraine gets? Yeah, that's important, that's for sure. But we need to understand that there are a lot still equipment that Russia can pull. There is still equipment on their stockpiles. Plus, we now seen some equipment coming in from North Korea. Now, North Korea nearly doesn't have the amounts of equipment that Russia would need to sustain the way that they're fighting. Not nearly enough. So 2025, 2026 would still be the timeline for Russia to start running very, very low on equipment. So that's important thing to understand. So for US sending equipment is pretty good, but the sanctions have been devastating, because the issue with sanctions is that there is no escaping. A lot of people says, well, Russia been under sanctions for 3 years, yet we seen like only a marginal impact, maybe starting like summer for Russia, where first kind of news started appearing that Russian economy is not doing well. And the answer to that is very, very simple, because these sanctions that were imposed before were basically imposed on understanding that, well, Europe and US are so powerful, and if we say that sanctions are imposed, then we just expect other parties to kind of just treat those sanctions and respect those sanctions and not actually break the law and help Russia in underhanded ways. Well, the reality turned out to be very different. And what changed was that at the end of 2023 for US, they've taken a couple of very important decisions. They've reassessed how they're approaching sanctions, and they started imposing sanctions starting April of 2024 of this year. They started imposing sanctions on third parties, most notably Chinese third parties, Indian third parties, and some of the Middle Asian countries third parties as well. Companies that are working with Russia and banks that are working with Russia. And that started giving effect really, really fast. So in reality, all of the sanctions that were supposedly placed on Russia were, in an underhanded way, were reapproached by Russians, and they only started working after US did this major step and created this, well, not created, but really tasked this agency to actually extend the second-hand sanctions to their Russian counteragents in all of the different countries. And that effect of sanctions that was there on Russia, it just kind of exploded because the sanctions started finally working. So it's inaccurate saying that Russia was under sanctions for 3 years, because if the sanctions are not imposed, then are they even there? And that's the problem of Europe. In Europe, we do not have a dedicated agency for imposing sanctions. We do not have the agency. So when I'm talking about Europe needs to grow its own muscle, just a little bit muscle, then this is where I'm talking about. Europe should have a new dedicated agency that's going to go on and pose these second-hand sanctions both on the European states, which would be great, but also on the third country states, sanctioning them for breaking European sanctions, because Europe doesn't have the enforcement mechanism. And that's why the worst thing that Trump can do for Europe, for Ukraine and everything, is stop that agency from working. That is the absolute worst thing that can happen, because the impact of that agency and what they did and how they are hurting Russia is immense. Russian economy is basically right now on their knees, and it's basic. Well, it's like, let's take the sinking guy. So if before we were saying that Russian economy was slowly sinking, then that thing basically just added 2 cement bags to the whole sinking guy shtick. So now Russia trying to throw out as many cement as they can, while at the same time their economy is taking in water and they're barely grasping for straws. It's really bad for Russia. Like if these sanctions and enforcement of these sanctions will go on through 2025, it's going to be already completely inevitable process for Russian economy to completely, collapse into itself. I wouldn't say that the country will stop functioning, but the country will de facto stop producing nearly enough of what it does, or it will go into complete hyperinflation with basically just making a paper money, monopoly money country. And they will basically not be useful for any kind of third country in the world anymore because their money is worth literally nothing. So that's why I'm really following this, and I'm very closely looking at what they're going to do. So for Biden to impose these sanctions, and that agency that still exists in the United States, and make sure that the third party countries are getting the message that this is still hurting you, do not even start considering trading with Russia or having some kind of negotiation with Russia. It is extremely important and needs to be happening constantly. And the results of this policy has been immensely successful. Yes, it's been raised to 20. Yeah, the Russian interest rate has been raised to 21%, and it's expected it's going to be raised even more in December. Some people say 23 to 24%. So it's going to be even higher. To put it into perspective, right, guys? So like to kind of get people to understand how bad 21% is. I don't think I've conveyed it good enough, but 21% is central bank rate. So when the commercial banks that are giving loans to the companies are taking the loan from the central bank, they are taking that loan at 21%. But then they want to earn some money on top of that. So they are putting this percentage point higher for private companies. And for private companies, it's 25 to 27%. So if you are owning a business, and if you, for example, want to expand your business, let's say build a new factory, and you want to take a loan, that loan will come with 27% interest rate. 27% interest rate. So when you are working, your product that you're selling better make over 27% profit. Otherwise, you're going to be working and not actually paying the companies, the bank off. And some people say there's 27% adjustable rate, which is like, hello. And some apparently are even taking a 28.4% mortgage rate. Yes. So I don't have the precise numbers right now, but the approximation. It's ludicrous. Almost no business. I don't think even, like, I'm not sure pornography runs with such a margin. I mean, like, probably pornography doesn't run that margins because it's like super popular. I mean, like, everyone does it, right? I don't know. But I mean, like, there are very few businesses that can afford such a percentage rate. Definitely no traditional. Like any kind of like food production, gone, just done. It's like no food product makes over 27% margin. None. Maybe niche products, but I'm talking about like a basic product package. All right, sorry for deviation to the economy. It's because, like, if you guys don't know, I have a master's degree in economics and business administration with a focus on technology, though. But still, I've studied plenty of economics, so it still is something that I very much enjoy following. Question from William John about Trump's cabinet picks. I told already that I will talk about them once they're confirmed. Won Bay, explain to me why the USA and the West should not sacrifice a small piece of territory to put a stop to this. I mean, if USA wants to give away part of the territory to Russia to stop to the war of Russian escalation and give all of the Ukrainian territory back to who it belongs, I mean, be my guest. It's a stupid way to go. Like, because we were getting in a situation, even if you give away, let's say, like what Russia wants, Alaska, let's go. You proposed this, not me. So you pronounce this nonsense, not me. So Russia supposedly wants Alaska. So let's say by your proposal here, it's like why the West should not give some territory to Russia. So US gives Alaska to Russia. Russia gets the fuck out of Ukraine. They get Alaska. Why is it bad? Why is it bad? Well, the fact still stays the same. Putin conducted an aggressive war on the neighboring state. That war, despite being bloody for the society and everything, still brought the benefits to the table. And he learned that if you have nuclear weapons, That means you can put the other, even if the other allies are supposedly nuclear powers, then that means only one thing, that if you have nuclear weapons and you threaten it, then the Western allies just fold in and they're even ready to give your own territory to them. Major victory for Russia, major victory for Putin. Now every dictatorship on planet Earth is now empowered to A, get nuclear weapons, and B, as fast as possible invade your non-nuclear weapon neighbor. Because it's basically returning back to the age of empires, where the might made right. So where if you were a smaller country and there was not a bigger country backing you, well, you're screwed. And now we're basically not doing that as much because of the quote-unquote international order. But apparently all of the Western allies just decided to forget that international order exists and just allowed United Nations to turn into a fucking circus where clowns are just saying words, getting a big fat check at the end of the month, and absolutely not caring for anything related to humanity. They are uninterested in peace. So returning to Age of Empires, we're already this close. We can postpone it, not postpone it, we can reverse it, and with a significant amount of work, we can actually try to reestablish that world order. Because very, very clear for us, all of the nuclear non-proliferation, all of that we should have some kind of international law-based order, it's gone. It's out of the window. Like, it's over, okay? Don't, like, the fact that we are still playing pretend in our European states, US, that supposedly UN is some kind of a decider of any kind of a resolution or what the international society will say. It's gone. It's dead. It's corpse. We are just trying to stroke the dick of a living dead. That's how far we are. The point is, we can still try to remake it, but that remake possibility to come back to the time of peace, the time of prosperity, the only way we can do that, if we right now make sure that we stop Putin, we put him into his place where that little bitch midget actually belongs, and we explain that if you're a dictator and you even think about going after a democratic state, yeah, we might take forever. Yeah, we might consider it and so on. We might have our internal problems, but bitch, you're gonna lose. So if that is the message that we're gonna send with the end of this war, it gives us the window of opportunity to try to rebuild this international law and order that was present for a while, that all of our peaceful societies, peaceful norms lived through the last 70 years. If not, and if Putin ends up with Alaska, well, let's do it again. All right. Georgie asking, when are the Cardinal Birds next tour? At least one of the guys from the Cardinal Birds is in the Ukrainian armed forces. So he is right now in the military and fighting for Ukraine. The other guys, I am not sure if they are allowed exit from Ukraine right now. I'm not sure about their conscription status, but this is a question that you probably should ask, well, Cardinal Birds. Cardinal Birds are the guys that wrote the music to outro of on my channel. If you've seen any of my videos, then you've heard about you heard that music. When are Georgie again asking, when are the Cardinal Birds going to North America? Same answer. Canada, has the Trump victory caused any loss to morale of Ukrainian fighters? No. Again, I already mentioned this in a couple of videos ago, and this is what the expert says, and this is a lot of what I'm seeing as well. Morale and morale loss, morale like this, the pendulum of support for Ukraine that like at first we're like, oh, Ukraine is winning, so good, so amazing. And then the pendulum of that emotional moment just swings. And then like, oh my God, Ukraine is losing completely because X, Y, Z happened something. It's not as prevalent in Ukrainian armed forces as it is us here in Europe. The further you are from the front line, the more defeatism or morale or this pendulum you experience for some reason. For a lot of the Ukrainian forces and guys at the front line, I mean, some cheered for it because honestly didn't like Biden that much because, well, I mean, I expressed it plenty that Biden is pretty much bleeding Ukrainians just to kind of try to put pressure on Putin and make sure Putin realizes the error of his ways. That's his Jake Sullivan's plan for winning Russia, and that's the Biden's modus operandi. And a lot of the fighters on Ukrainian armed forces thought that's like, no, maybe Trump comes, maybe it's gonna be worse, but hey, maybe it's gonna be better. You know, they already are on the front lines, are having it as bad as it is, right? It's losses every day. Your territory is being lost, your cities are being destroyed, your friends getting killed. Then you get message that a missile hit and killed some people and children. You know, it's as bad as it is for Ukraine. So they're looking for a lot of different options. So maybe there were some people that were invested in Biden's winning. Maybe it's possible. But again, on generally speaking, for the people on the front line, the swings of this mood are a lot less noticeable. The Mr. Gasoline, why is it NATO sending troops to Ukraine? North Koreans are in the war and they aren't even the defenders. Mr. Gasoline, exactly. It's absolutely true. This is the bullshit that we've been fed by our politicians. This is the bullshit that we've been fed. All of these narratives that, oh my God, if we just join, it's going to be a third world war and so on. Absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. If the armed forces of NATO will just go in and fight for Ukraine, it's just going to be that. Like, even if they just go in and, for example, stand on the border with Belarus, that's going to be it. Putin will throw a temper tantrum, and then he's going to shut the fuck up. Because, again, people say it's like, oh, but, North Koreans are fighting for Russia on the territory of Russia. Well, excuse me, but this war is not defined by territory. This is an aggressive war that was started by Russia, a war of aggression, an absolutely disgusting war of aggression that against is any kind of perception of what a warfare is. Like, if we would not be like, I don't even need to explain this to you because it is so obvious that Russia is the aggressor. And as an aggressor, they're also pulling in another country to attack the defending state. That is another country participating in aggression against Ukraine. And this weird dichotomy that everyone is trying to find just any kind of excuse to try to even a little justify whatever Putin or Russia is doing is pissing me off to no end, is completely and utterly untrue. Russia is making the war of aggression. They are attacking Ukraine. This war can end with Russia exiting the war tomorrow. That's it. There's not going to be any more war. Leave the territory of Ukraine, the war ends. But Russia doesn't want to. They want to capture more territory. They want to destroy more people. They want to kill more Ukrainians. And North Koreans are helping that aggressive push. They are helping Russians to push and attack deeper in Ukraine. It doesn't matter if it's territory of Russia and so on. Russia is not some neutral state that just happens to be attacked, where suddenly there is like some kind of fighting and then North Korean peacekeepers. No, it's another state joining the aggression. It's two states attacking Ukraine. Now, Iran is also by proxy, but the troops from North Korea are there as well, official troops. And the fact that we have so limp dick answer, basically non-existent, to the participation of these troops, the only thing that we would be saying is like, well, if North Korean troops are there, our planes are now in Ukraine. We're closing the sky. If we close the sky, if we send in the troops to Ukraine, there will be no escalation. It is non-escalatory to respond to escalation. That's it. Do you think Ukraine will have sufficient artillery shells for months to come? Allies are still slow poking and ramping up production. Good question, and this is where we can kind of ramp off into the discussion about what Trump will do and can do. So first things first, Biden right now is working overtime to fix some of his fuck-ups. So they are right now trying to get more help that is promised to Ukraine. Some people say it's going to be 7 billion, and that's good. And apparently Biden also wants Congress to pass additional 20 billion on financing to Ukraine. And I think that one is dead on arrival. I don't expect the new Congress to pass it. I think they're just going to go and say, no, Joe, you're a lame duck, so you get absolutely nothing. Maybe if Biden will be able to convince Trump, but I'm not really expecting him to. What I think Biden might be able to convince Trump for is for US to respect the contracts that have been already signed, because the money has been already allocated. So there is no point, like there is no savings in not sending the deliveries. It's just going to be bad for the companies. Because remember, there was in general, there is no new Congress yet. They're not fully in. Yeah, I understand that. But like the rumors are that as soon as the Congress are in, the new one in, that's when the Biden is going to ask for additional payment. I understand that. Yes, so what Biden might hope to achieve with Trump is that the contracts that were already signed will be delivered to Ukraine. And that's actually significant help. There's been a lot of money allocated with a later date for Ukraine. So in 2025, for example, Ukraine would probably start receiving some of the contracts that were signed at the end of 2023, right? So there's going to be still certain amounts of weapons, even if US stops, like day one, Trump comes and just stops any new deliveries of weapons to Ukraine, and the older contracts will still be delivered. It's still going to be quite a lot. Plus, if Biden secures these 7 billions delivered to Ukraine, it's going to be, again, pretty significant boost for at least this winter to spring. And moreover, there's been a lot of investment in Ukraine, and Ukrainian factories are kicking out of production. I always said that Ukraine needs to hold on until the end of 2026. This is where essentially all of the production capacities within Europe and Ukraine will start pumping up pretty much more stuff than Russia is pumping up. It's not going to produce the stocks, but Ukraine will start producing a lot of stuff. And they already are producing a lot of stuff. So like we're hearing artillery. There's been saying that Ukraine is pumping at least 14 new artillery pieces per month. Or was it per week? Maybe it was per week. So don't quote me on that. So it's a lot of production that's being built, but they still need a year. So if Ukraine can get through this year, even with territorial concessions, I mean, in a sense of like they're like doing what they're doing right now, like falling back, giving Russia some land, but buying time. In that sense, concessions, not like negotiations. Then I feel if Ukraine can get past 2025 to 2026, sorry, I said at the end of 2026, I mean end of 2025, sorry, at the start of 2026. So if Ukraine can get to 2026, I think it will be in a very good spot. I think Ukraine will be in a good spot even without United States. Is it going to be as dominant and prevalent and will allow Ukraine to completely win the war? No, I don't think so. I still feel that Russia will still try to pull a lot of stuff from the allies. But I think Ukraine will be in a very strong position. So like even without United States, in 2026, we even might see Ukraine going for certain aggressive moves. Obviously, Trump stops this supplies from United States. I would not expect Ukraine to do any major aggressive moves in 2025. So 2025, all of the preparations that Ukraine did for counterattacks probably will be postponed. Though I do have a kind of a little bit of a hint. So, and bear with me, and this is pure speculation, like absolute speculation. So we know the value of Kursk, the Kursk operation of Ukraine. It was great, right? It was great. I mean, some jokers really tried to tell us that, it wasn't that great. Russia didn't really pull a lot of forces. Then they didn't attack Ukrainians, so the losses for Russians were not that high. Ukrainians actually lost significant amounts when they were going in, because that's usually what happens with the aggressive. But they did okay. But in the end, look at Putin now. Look at his essentially Putin with a red face is like stomping his feet, yelling at his generals like, I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it. And he's yelling at them and stating that he really wants Kursk there to be taken back before Trump's 20th January inauguration. He wants to have Kursk secured before any negotiations can start about the future of Ukraine. Because Kursk, while the territory there is not large, but that territory can be maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 times valued more than whatever there is in negotiations with regards to territorial concessions for Ukraine, potentially. And for that matter, I'm considering, because I know Ukraine has reserves, right? I know it doesn't feel like for you. I understand. But Ukraine has reserves. What I'm thinking is that there's a lot of Russian forces now completely entangled. What if suddenly, before Trump's inauguration, Ukraine decides and goes into Russia again? And they then snap another piece of territory of Russia. And instead of Russia winning back positions, Russia is losing even more suddenly. Suddenly, Russia now has to try to feel in return. How big of a blow would that be to Russia, do you think? Right before Trump's inauguration, imagine like January 10th, Russia suddenly reports that Ukrainian forces are taking parts of, I don't know, Belgorod region, whatever. Whoa, crazy, right? So even negotiation starts, and then suddenly there is like additional takeage by Ukraine of territory. I think that could be an interesting gambles. I think it is being evaluated by the Ukrainian armed forces, and it's definitely something that I'm trying to look clues for. I know so far we've been very, very secretive. Ukraine has been very secretive about its plans, but it's not a bad thing, right? That would be an interesting to strengthening the positions of Ukraine in the talks, no? Yes. All right, let's continue on. Komelis Zandbergen. Do you think Ukraine will have sufficient artillery shells for months to come? Yes. Allies are still slow poking and ramping up production. Sorry, that was the question I answered. No, so far it's fine. Myroko, Georgie, what do you hear when Putin opens his mouth? Yeah, it's an old joke. It's an inside joke. But yeah, it's mostly the fart sounds. It's me and like, so this joke comes from me trying to explain you that you should not listen to what Putin says, right? Putin doesn't make good arguments. Like he's just pronouncing propaganda. It's useless to listen to what he says. Killa B, Georgie Tampon, this is surrender, comment, click, bait, or what? What? Okay, I don't know what it was, but whatever. Robert Chittenden, can Ukraine and the European alone without US? Just answer that. Dilf Hobo Nick, how many North Koreans have been liquidated so far? We don't know. Japanese characters guy, have there been any signs of the EU planning to operationalize and or expand the EU battle groups? Yes. Has been stopping expansion in the program given France and Germany both expressed support for it. Yes, as far as I understand, the battle groups have been expanded. The rapid deployment force has been, at least on plan, from what I've heard, it's been expanded. More troops definitely was sent to the Baltics. I know that for sure. And from what I've heard, that there are, like, just Poland, look at Poland. Poland is significantly rearming. Plus, all of the Baltics and Poland are reinforcing the border. The border is closed. They're digging trenches on the border. They're setting up the fire pits. No, not fire pits, sorry. It's like, I'm sorry, we're not in medieval times. I mean, like fire stations, like where they're, not fire stations, but like fire spots? I don't know. Like these like bunkers, essentially. So firing positions, there we go, there, thank you. So it has been done like all across the border with Russia. So when people say like, every time like you hear like the analysis from people like what's going to happen if Russia invades the Baltics, everyone says like, well, they're going to just take Suwalki Gap and then the Baltics will be cut off and then like, whoa, stop this, that. It is well known. Suwalki Gap has been incredibly reinforced and it's really like both Lithuania and Poland are taking it very seriously. All right, I think there was some additional donations. Captain Copenhagen, how many percent of Russian losses are in Kursk approximately? Oof. I haven't seen the numbers yet, so I can pull from my head. Well, we definitely seen like from the operation there was like over hundreds of vehicles. So I believe the total number was like something just over 200 of reported vehicles that were destroyed, including light and heavy vehicles. Yeah, probably we're talking couple of thousands, 2, 3, 4,000 maybe Russians, North Koreans destroyed. Maybe, maybe less, maybe less. I don't know. I don't know the number. So I'm guessing just compared to the losses of equipment. But it's difficult because sometimes equipment losses are not equal to the Russian losses. Sometimes, like for example, what is happening right now in Kursk, when a majority of their equipment losses are happening when they're fully stacked to the brim with the guys riding on top of the armor. Then there is a lot usually manpower losses as well. So it's very hard to estimate. But I will see if I can find some kind of statistics for that for the next time. Finn Flash, thank you so much for 100 Swedish kroners. Yvonne, thank you so much for being a member for 18 months. Appreciate it. Enrique Larocque, is Russia winning on the battlefield? No, it's not a football match. Fuck off. Martinas Piletskas, hello from Lithuania. Sveikas, my friend. Dilf Hobanik, what do you think of Trump's cabinet picks? Not gonna answer that for now. Gonna wait until it's confirmed. Kellen Dunn, Ukraine and allies should not share intelligence with the United States anymore, especially with Tulsi Gabbard, who is a Kremlin agent. Yes, Tulsi Gabbard is a Kremlin agent, or Director of Intelligence. Putler has now full access to US intelligence if she's confirmed. Yes, Kellen Dunn. Moreover, it's actually, I feel the situation was like that before. Like the fact that Russia knew so much about Ukrainian plans, and only when they changed of general to General Syrsky, and then suddenly Ukraine started hitting plans from their allies, and then suddenly their plans succeeded. Well, for me, that was like a clear, just like empirical example that Ukraine should probably keep their plans to themselves. So I think Ukraine is aware of that, and I think Ukraine is working with that paradigm. EXO mixed music. What sanctions can Trump remove from Russia? I talked about this specifically. Mostly not sanctions, but the enforcements of sanctions. So that's the important part. Oh my God, the nickname. So a lot of letters starts with "by." What's going on? Sorry, I just joined. This is a question. You need to ask question that is relevant to the topic. That was a waste of my time. Matt Stoetz, any updates on the blood feud in Chechnya? There are fightings, there are like killings on a local level, but as I said, it's not. Mr. Trenchcoat guy. Okay. Are you growing a ponytail? I'm not growing. I already have it. What I want is how do you say, this sort of a Viking, quote unquote, haircut with like what is called it's called the binds, like whatever, the bind hair that goes like all the way across the head, and I want to shave my sides. So don't ask. It's just stupid experiment that I'm doing. And I'm just rolling with this. I wanted to cut my hair already like 7 times, but my wife said like, no, you need to finish this, or you're gonna just like eat yourself alive that you didn't do it. It's a stupid idea that I just decided to go for. So don't mention it. It's like someone said like, are you and Artur Reichi competing who has the stupidest haircut? Yes, we are. Regarding the election in Germany, it is supposed to start in the month of January. I've heard the month of January was announced, and it's not elections, it was the vote of no confidence. But I've heard that there was a push from the opposition, and Scholz supposedly said that he doesn't oppose that push for the vote of no confidence to be held on the 15th of December. Serhiy Onishenko, in discussion within Belgians, I'm hearing people suggesting that dictatorships are in some way better than democracies. How do I pass my post-USSR context in those never silenced by a regime? They're right. Like Serhiy, like the point is they're right? So there is the problem of things that we need to understand. So dictatorships never start as bloody, disgusting powers, right? Look at Trump coming out right now, right? So we're gonna build, for example, And this is an example that I'm stating. So Trump, one of his announcement of his Agenda 47, he said that there is like American cities overrun with poverty. So he's stating that they will collect the poor people from the streets of the towns, and they will build not camps. He didn't say camps. He said settlements or cities with tents far away from the cities for these people. So, and a lot of people, especially people that are experiencing this in the United States, they're experiencing this, like poor people, drug abuse and so on. They're like, wow, fuck yeah, amazing plan. You know, it's finally happening. We're cleaning up our cities. We're cleaning up our cities of these unwanted elements. So, and the problem, that's how dictatorships start, right? That's a very much dictatorial, not democratic thing. Because in democracies, all voices matter. Like, and even you're poor, super poor, dirt poor, if you have a passport and you can vote, you're valued for democracy. But in dictatorial regimes, that doesn't matter. In dictatorial regimes, there are certain groups of people that are important, that the people that support the ruling class, the ruling party, the ruling leader, and the people that don't matter, people that can be essentially be the butt of the joke. So when you're putting these unwanted elements into these tent camps, suddenly you realize that there is a lot of population, and they are going to be excluded from the city infrastructure. So they need to be provided with food, water, so on. And then if they're not provided with that, with all like social elements of like what normal city, normal life runs on, then most likely there's going to be like crime starting there, like diseases and so on. So at some point, dictatorship says like, okay, these unwanted guys, they're a real problem. Let's kind of put a fence so they don't escape these camps, and they stay in these camps just so they don't come back to the cities. And then it's like it's going to be fine. So they put this. But the guys, you know, it's like, they're like, oh my God, we're now closed in. I was like, but this is America. I'm free to do whatever I want, right? So they try to escape and so on. So then the dictatorial regime is like, well, let's put some guards in there with like batons. So they will beat the peoples that are breaking the law and escaping from these camps. And then they beat the inmates back into the camps. So all of these unwanted elements. And then as the thing progress, then suddenly it's like, well, inside of these camps, like there's a lot of problems, like ghettos and so on. Well, and we're spending a lot of money. And you know, it's just like no one really cares about these people anymore, right? Look at our cities. Our cities are clean. People are happy. 2028 election went by, and people remember that there was a lot of poor people beforehand on the streets, and there is zero now. Well, let's go for this again. And then all of these people that saw that direct improvement, they're like, yes, let's fucking go. Let's vote for this party once again. And then suddenly you're like, okay, well, let's make our streets even cleaner. Let's get all of the disabled people so they don't spoil the view for the normal population and so on. You see what I'm getting with? Like, I think I couldn't be more obvious. It's not given that this has happened, but it might happen. So when you're talking about dictatorships taking over, dictatorships very often come with simple solutions for very complex problems. Poverty, drug use, drug abuse, prostitution, very, very complex societal problems. Very complex. And they require, for them to work, they require very complex solutions so that the society can function, the democratic society that we declared, where every life is valuable, no matter how stupid or broken and so on, that we declare that the person can make wrong decisions in life. It requires us to be maybe compassionate and understand and try to help that person. But dictators, they come with simple solutions for very complex problems. And they never start as a humanity destroying, people killing regimes. No, they're usually very pragmatic. But that chain getting from, well, we'll just make life better for the people that are contributing more to our country, and getting to the state where they are eradicating parts of society because they are unwanted parts of society, that is not a very far stretch. That is not far stretch at all. Alan 4. Oh, sorry. I think the questions jumped for me. Enrique Laroque, is Russia winning on the battlefield? I think you already asked this question. Oh, no, I just scrolled too much. Never mind. NGC7603B, big fan here, especially the live shows. Did Trump call Putin yet? Or did he not? I think they did, but because it was like premature, I think they didn't want to publicity, but I think there was a conversation. Alan Forbes, watching the Russian lose so many troops and equipment, especially recently, how quickly do you think they will pass a point of no return if the war for attrition? Surely they're getting close. Yes. I mean, no, not yet. No, I wouldn't say so. I don't think they're getting very close yet. No. It's definitely getting worse for Russians, but they still are finding people that are like that for whom the money that they're offering is high enough, and that money is being raised. So until they can pay that money, there's going to be more people coming in. Gen Consensus, I believe Trump called and spoke to Putin. The Kremlin denies this. Allegedly, he told Putin to stop escalating, and the Russians increased attacks on civilians. How much this actually occurred? I think it's I don't know. Right? This is where I'm going to draw the line. It's a pure speculation, right? I think the call definitely occurred. I think this is not a far-fetched to consider. But with regards like what Trump said, okay, I know what they said. So Putin says, so this is what I want no, it's like Trump says, this is what I want for Ukraine. This is my plan, and thank you for congratulating me, Mr. Putin. And then Putin said, no way. And the Trump said, way. And that's how the call went. There we go. That's 100%. That's a transcript. Canada, would it benefit Ukraine to have even more Russian territory, or is it that little bit? I talked about this already. Gen Consensus, regarding Trump failed to stop the war, bring peace in one day, as he claimed 10 times while campaigning. Do you believe they can make peace deal next year? I'm interested in your opinions. Thank you so much. I talked about peace plenty. Nothing that Trump is offering so far is a peace. It's a confusion of what a peace is. It's maybe you can maybe somewhat call it as a ceasefire. Maybe like with a lot of strings attached, but peace, it definitely is not. Sorry. My sickness is coming out a little bit. All right. Oh my God. I even got like tears in my eyes. If Ukraine builds nukes, will they use it while they're still at it on the occupied territories? No, Dilf Hobo, I explained this a little bit, and I'll repeat it again. Nukes for Ukraine are not relevant in themselves. Nukes for Ukraine are relevant in the same way as Russia is using nukes. So, because nukes for Russia are doing an incredible job. I'm pretty sure you agree with me here. A lot of these non-escalation talks and non-provoking Russia talks, like if Russia would not have nukes and Putin would not threaten to use nukes, then Russia would be already wiped from the planet, right? I'm pretty sure we both agree on that. I'm hoping you can agree with this. That in any kind of a non-nuclear war, like Russia just loses, okay? And NATO would not hold back. We agree on that, I hope. So nukes is the only thing that is stopping Russia. Nukes is allowing Russia to have leverage in diplomacy. It's allowing Russia to have leverage in a lot of the negotiations aspects and so on. I think it's very relevant for Ukraine to threaten that they will bring nuke and they will use nuke and they will irradiate the shit out of Russia and Ukraine and half of Europe. Why? Because then finally the European politicians start to listen. Remember, Zelensky just like briefly mentioned it. And then there was like a a whole howling for a whole week about how scared, how like shitting bricks all of these politicians that were selling off Ukraine for the last 3 years, that were standing there in a way and just like drinking their cappuccinos, slowly eating and discussing, oh, are we sending enough or not enough to Ukraine? Maybe we should not send as much because our GDP growth is relatively stable. We should... Out. Get the fuck out, useless piece of shit. No, nukes would be relevant as it creates a negotiation and political pressure on the allies that are failing to do the simplest job in a fucking world. So that, in that sense, I feel nukes would be relevant for Ukraine. If nukes would be like relevant to use, absolutely not. No, in no case absolutely would be relevant for Ukraine to use nukes. Ukraine can never produce enough nukes to essentially nuke Russia. And I'm not sure if Ukraine has delivery mechanisms for all of them. And moreover, yeah, I mean, just losing both is not really win for Ukraine. Let's be very clear. Like the fact that Russia will just nuke Ukraine into oblivion after that, I mean, that's kind of given. But no one wants that, right? So Ukraine should use nukes as the political pressure point. Sergei Onishchenko, is Ukraine people is asking people what is their plan? What's their plan of action when Russia invades the Baltics? A way to engage people into Ukrainian support? Not really. Not really. I mean, somewhat like it's an argument, but it doesn't really involve people, right? Because our politicians are very good at selling that everything is fine. They're really selling it very, very good. And we have been sold that whatever is happening in Ukraine is staying in Ukraine. So that's the story that has been sold to us. So there is this angle that we must use. And this is something I've discussed with my friend recently. Like I've visited my friend from university that I haven't seen for a while now. And hi, Rasmus, if you're watching this. And it was great. And we talked about this. And I actually complained to him. And I said, it's so disgusting that I need to make argument that we need to help Ukraine because otherwise we're going to be put ourselves into risk. Because we shouldn't be there. Like Europe is a major powerhouse. I'm hoping that my European friends here agree with me. Europe has incredible economic power. Yet whenever we're talking some kind of negotiations, we are taking it like from a position of like, I don't know, like some kind of person that is just begging for something. You know, we're not stating and putting our demands on the counter agents, on third world countries. We're not stating it's like if you only try to do something, like you're gonna really regret it. Like we're not projecting power, so to say. And that is wild for me. Because the amount of, like, the economy of Russia is a speck. Russia is dirt. Russia is absolutely useless piece of human trash that we have on our planet. And the fact is that Putin is threatening Europe while his country is basically dog shit. His army is dog shit. His economy is dog shit. His politics and his political allies are all garbage. Like, it's a speck of what we have in Europe. Even if you just compare the militaries, we can crush Russia. Even if you compare nukes, if we're going to the Cold War rhetoric, we still have significant capabilities in United Kingdom, France, to really make Russia pay whatever it does. We have that capabilities. And my problem is that we're not acting like this big sovereign power that defends its core values, that defends it. And I mean like not like inside defense with one leg behind. I'm talking about really being aggressive and in pursuing that our values are projected outwards, and we're trying to play these peaceful, weird continent of peace and butterflies, where the challenges of this doesn't call for peace and butterflies. It calls us to actually show a backbone and strength, and our politicians are failing extremely miserably about this. So when we're talking about whether or not we should be helping Ukraine, the fact that we need to even talk about this, like to get to Europeans, I would want Europeans to be in this state, in a state of like, we are big, strong Europe. Who the fuck are you to even try to threaten us? You dirt? That is the language that I want European politicians to have against Putin. That the discussion with Putin is like, not how much territory of Ukraine we're supposedly going to carve up for him, but how deep the demilitarized zone should go deep into Russia, from the borders of the Baltic states, from our borders, European borders, so that bitch doesn't even consider sending any troops even nearby, not even look our way. That is what I want. That is the signal that I want. But because we are flimsy dick running countries that cannot decide on anything, we are forced to make arguments like you described here, saying is like, well, if we don't help Ukraine now, Russia is gonna invade Europe. And that frustrates me to no end. To no end. Mm-hmm. There we go. Andarolus, I feel worried that Zelensky stated that the war should stop next year through diplomatic ways, meaning give up territory. Actually, the Ukraine lost the way. No. Zelensky never said anything about giving up territory. It's you assumed. It's like, it's exactly what I'm fucking talking about. It's like Zelensky says about war dealing in a peaceful way, in a negotiated peace, and instantly you motherfucker, you instantly think, I was like, oh, that means Ukraine gives away territory. That is what he means. And that is the problem that I want to solve with these videos. That is the problem that I want to solve. I want you, the viewers, my community, to at least here be the sense of understanding that majority of our problems, our red lines, our perception in the world and everything is in our heads. It's in our heads. So when Zelensky says about peaceful proposition, the first thing you comes to is like, how much are we giving away to this major threat to us, Putin? Because, oh, he's so scary. No, that's not what should be happening. What should be happening is like, well, how much Putin is going to give? Like, because obviously negotiated solutions means that Putin is losing. He's just going to be forced to negotiate. That is the problem. Like, the problem is not Ukraine. The problem is not Zelensky. The problem is not the fucking mobilization. The problem is you, motherfucker, with your stupid thinking. And I'm not talking specifically about you. I'm talking about the people that still cannot find where their balls are at, who are living in the most prosperous, economically rich, militarily powerful alliance in the whole fucking world. How pitiful is that? Brian Johnson, how big is the Ukrainian production of weapons, etc. right now? How far away are they from meeting their own needs? They're still pretty far away. They are building up. I would say they are, and this is me taking the lower bracket, because I don't want to say what is the higher bracket. And without giving away certain things that unfortunately was conveyed to me. I like, again, people that know some secretive information, people that know like some deep insights into the front lines and plans of Ukraine, do not share them with me. I'm a fucking civilian from across the border, okay? If you're Ukrainian and you know about some secret stuff about, like, I know there is like production near your cities and so on, you do not need to tell me that. I have no business knowing about like where you build your factories, okay? Stop doing that. It's stupid. But I unfortunately know a couple of things, and there is a lot of things that are being built and done in Ukraine, and they are progressing quite well, but it still needs a lot more investment. Major problem is for Ukraine is that they're spending a lot of military funds to still buy the weapons. So they are forced to not invest. They don't have a lot of disposable funds to really invest in production in Ukraine. There is a lot of smaller scale things, but they need bigger scale production investments. So as far as I understand right now, there's going to be more and more rounds of talking with different countries and presenting them with ideas for scaled production within Ukraine, and then the countries hopefully will agree to fund these programs. I hope this helps clarify it. Louis Zulinga, would Trump's victory boost leftist movements in Europe? No, no. Trump's victory justified MAGA, so it's going to be even more push for right wingers in Europe, because Trump has proven that MAGA is a winning policy, winning formula. Mr. Gasoline, how can I increase the visibility of all the ways to aid Ukraine? Well, you can stay in touch with me. We're gonna be working on the program starting next year, and I guess this is as good of a time as any. So, guys, as you know, I have a main job, and that main job has been sustaining me and my wife. And some of the funds I've been sending to Ukraine on like private things, mostly like I was buying stuff for soldiers. Like it's nothing too fancy. Just buying stuff from Ukrainian shops through the local volunteers, and then they delivering stuff to soldiers and so on. And obviously, we done like big fundraisers that raised a lot of money for Ukrainian armed forces, and we're continuously doing this. But as I mentioned already today, it's been eating me alive that I could be doing more. And I feel the decision came that I think that I can do more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do this full time. I'm going to try to go this full time. I'm going to take a break from my job. And I'm going to try to make sure that we do more exposure, we do more political activism, we do more military procurement, and we do more work to coordinate efforts to help Ukraine, hopefully all across Europe and throughout the world. So this is something I will be dedicating my time starting January. So starting January, I'm going to be doing more for YouTube. So there's going to be a content for YouTube coming you. That's the good news for you. So great news for you is going to be a lot more videos. I'm going to also post like my analysis and cover more topics on like Blue Sky accounts. So I will be writing there. Please follow that one as well on Blue Sky. And most importantly, we're going to do a lot of these promotional activities. We're going to do a lot of cross-funding for Ukrainian armed forces, procurement. So I'm going to basically go into like semi-activism, so to say. It's a bit risky because my wife is still dependent on me making sure, but hopefully with YouTube advertisers and maybe some of you that really could do this, like maybe help from January, I would appreciate it. But I will see what I can do. I will see what I can do. Worst case scenario, I'm going to give it half a year. If in half a year it's not going to fly, then I will find another job. There's a question about Ukrainian nuke. Again, I'm going to answer that. Caitlin T, do you think that after Ukraine fully develops its own long-range missiles, the Western countries will finally do away with restrictions? No, I think there's like, as I said, like the main restrictions for Ukraine were from the Joe Biden-Schultz axis, and both ends of these axes are now gone. So I'm not sure if these restrictions will hold. I think we need to see what the world and situation will look like once Trump is in power and once there have been new elections completed in Germany. Kila B, would you agree to terms of Russia keeping Crimea, taking half of the territory? You motherfuckers just don't learn, do you? Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, so Killer B is asking, because it's a bit of a different angle. This is not about, like, I mean, it is defeatism that I'm trying to explain to you, but I'm not going to rant about this again. I'm going to mention other things. So he says, like, if Russia keeping Crimea, taking half territory along with borders heading towards Crimea, an agreement that Russia can't take any resources from that land. It's not about land. This war is not about land. Ukraine is a proof of concept for the axis of evil, okay? It's a proof of concept how far they can push the world order. Okay? It's not about Ukraine. It's not about it. It's not about the territory. Russians that are signing up to go kill Ukrainians is nothing to do with the territory. No country in the world will try to attack and lose 700,000 of their troops for just territory. It's not about territory. There's a bigger thing here. There's a bigger, like, Russian dream that they're fighting Nazism. They're perceiving that Ukrainians are just lesser than themselves. There's a lot of layers in this. And the majority of these layers are not in territory. Giving Putin territory does nothing to remove the underlying reasons for him invading Ukraine for the first, just being the reason for invading Ukraine. The first place. There we go. Yeah. They're testing the waters. They're testing how much idiots like yourself that are ready to give Putin everything that he wants, despite me explaining on this channel every time how much how shitty their army is, how bad they're fighting, and we in the Western world having the easiest job in the world, sending a little bit of our own budgets, sending a little bit of our weapons, investing in Ukrainian production, and then sitting and then looking how, like, drinking our cappuccinos, and then seeing how Ukrainians will roll over. Instead, we're like having a mind break about like $60 billion for US budget, which is like statistical error. That's how bad it is. That is how bad it is. So when Putin says, like, that democracies and the Western democracies specifically are weak, he's talking about you, the guys that are still considering that we should surrender to the imperialism because, scary Putin. Data Relay, thank you so much for $2. Appreciate it. RHC Punk, thank you so much for 129 Swedish kronos. Captain Copenhagen, create an investment company that will invest in Ukraine war production. Yes, Captain, that's something that I'm also considering. Yes. I will be looking at this. But when I come to investors, I don't want to just do it like, hey, you know me, I'm a popular guy, I'm an investor, let's just do stuff. I want to have specific things, specific product, and when I the specific plan for the investment and the return on investment prepared. So I want to come by, like, take the goodwill, but take the goodwill with the proper delivery plan. Because I don't want it to be like, I've been in business, I've been in a lot of corporate world, and I know how economics and business work. And if I want to speak with business, I need to be able to speak with them on, well, the language that they understand. If it's an investment, what's the return on investment? When? And how safe it is. Evil Clown BLA. Why does Ukraine not make non-combat engineer division with builders, engineers, laborers who are not maintaining to be the front line? Can I give plans for trenches, defense bunkers? I'm not saying that they don't. Not saying that they don't. Corny Horse, let's go. Do you think that Ukraine should attempt to create a nuclear... I already talked about this. So we can invest in Ukraine. Yes, we will be investing in Ukraine. There's definitely people that want to invest here in Denmark. There's been people that have been approaching me to invest in what I kind of pitched a little bit. There's been like a couple of people that approached me by email saying that they have like, a couple $100,000s that they would like to invest. So there's like a lot of possibilities. But as I said, like I want to have like something practical on hands to approach people with this. before I continue on. And so far, like, my primary job, unfortunately, was somewhat in the way. I had the time to do these videos, to do the research for these videos, to do the programs and so on, but I never had the time to fully kind of go in depth. Even something as simple as, like, get a meeting with someone in like Copenhagen and just take a day off to go and meet someone in Copenhagen. It was like a whole adventure because I have my day job, right? So it's now going to be a little bit different. We'll see. Yeah, I know I still have the link to Twitter account. I will change it. It's something I need to do again. Would Ukraine be able to function without Starlink if necessary? It would be definitely a big problem, but hopefully not. Team Moments, new bingo card for RF 2025, the bankruptcies. No, nothing so far. Like, economies are a lot more resilient than we expect. And while I'm saying that Russian economy is doing pretty bad, it is true, but there's still a lot of the how do you say, like, a lot of fat that they can cut. No one likes us talking, broadcasting. Is Ukraine building defenses? Yes. Romulus, thought on technological advancements of Shaheeds, rather absorbing paint moment. I mean, it's tactical improvements, Russia doing it non-stop. I never almost mentioned it, but Russia is always adapting on a tactical level. Like, the problems of Russia are not on the tactical level, the problems of Russia are on strategic level. Like, what they're doing is just stupid, and they're not learning. The way that they're fighting is not learning. That doesn't mean that the guys that are, for example, doing drones are not making new drones. It doesn't mean that they're not adapting certain tactics. It doesn't mean that they're not adapting and so on. They're always adapting on the front line. It's just the nature of war. They're not completely stupid. They're just utterly incompetent. Dil Khobanik, if Trump... Okay. Diggers Boys. Surely poor Ukraine has sold its soul to the US, but... Oh my God. Okay, it's gone. You're gone. Dizzy Dog, have you seen Ruskies using the fiber optics on their drones so cannot be jammed? Yes, I've seen it. Maybe I've seen it closer than other people. Never mind. Some people proposed to me, like, if maybe we should make these drones for Ukraine ourselves. I'm gonna be looking into that, but I've seen some of these drones, like, up close. Eric Nielsen, why don't we talk more about the fail of England and USA to protect Ukraine's territory when they gave up nukes, rockets, love from Denmark to Ukraine? Well, we do talk about it. It's just, I don't like looking a lot in the past. Like, I sometimes I bitch about this, but I think our focus should be on what we're going to do next rather than what we did in the past and why it was a mistake and so on. I think it's a great discussion to have for historians and so on, but this channel and myself, I always care a lot more about what are we going to do next. So I can use that justification that, like, there was this agreement and US didn't do it, but I'm not going to go in details and figuring out why and how and so on. For me, it's just like, okay, they didn't do it, so now we should do more. So it's always in a kind of in a slice of, like, well, what's the action now then? Talk about Kursk, please. No. Michael, look, can the European Union afford to keep Ukraine in arms to win this war? Yes. Dilf Kobonik, since North Korea sent 12,000 troops to Kursk, intentionally recognized Russian territory, NATO should send 12,000 troops to Kharkiv region. Yeah, sure. I think I already answered some of this. Lobo Raider, why doesn't call out Germany? Is there a chance Poland strikes it? What? Okay, I don't know what you meant. Like, your sentences don't make sense. So Lobo Raider 75, you can try to re-ask the question, but I don't understand what you mean. Simon Battle, hypothetically, in your opinion, do you think Trump desires more to salvage Russia to pay his debt to Putin, or would Trump desire more to discharge that debt by letting Putin down? I think you're making a lot of assumptions here, which I'm not completely sure. But one thing that everyone can agree on is, like, Trump cares for Trump first and foremost. So that's going to be his modus operandi. I'm going to wait what's going to happen once he's in office. So far, I've seen that Ukraine is not too high on his agenda. So I think there is a lot of like fluctuation there. And it feels for me that for MAGA, despite the talking points, Ukraine is not one of the most critical topics. I still feel that immigration and economy is a lot more prevalent for a lot of Americans rather than Ukraine. Is it true that Ukraine promised mineral resources to Trump? Yes, I mean, it wasn't a plan that Ukraine published openly. No. Edgar Stee, if Trump helps Russia to have some kind of victory, should Baltics aim to get nuclear weapons? Yeah, absolutely. Like no chances. Absolutely, yes. Get nukes. Like literally, if this war, if Trump ends this war as is he proposing, just get nukes. Like that's the signal. Because with Trump, we cannot expect their nukes to protect us. Will a ceasefire stop Russia from financial ruin? Yes, it can. Russia is struggling because so much resources are being dumped into the war. Right? So if the fires of war stop burning, then suddenly you have a lot of resources that you can essentially reinvest back into the economy. So war is expensive, literally expensive. And for Russia, they're paying the price already. For the first 2 years, they were running on their war chest, but now that war chest is pretty much empty, and now they are going to be struggling a lot. Misdemeanor, thank you so much for $20. Appreciate it. Slava Ukraini. Hiram Slavam, my friend. Is there any further news on South Korea sending military weapons? No, it's been talks, but nothing concrete so far. Martina Splitskas, what if Zelensky doesn't not agree with the terms at all? I don't think she should agree. I don't think it's impossible to agree. Well, we haven't heard the terms, but there are a couple of things that I wrote, by the way, in my Blue Sky. So let me show you my Blue Sky, and then we can talk. Okay. So let me switch the camera a little bit. And okay, that's the wrong window. 1 second, just 1 second. Yes, I think this one is. If you see porn, don't then everything is correct. Oh, wait, wrong window, but okay. So no porn for you guys. Anyway, let's jump into the Blue Sky. Yeah. Oh no, that's the Blue Sky following. Come on. There we go. Oh, I didn't post that I was streaming. Oh no, I posted I would start streaming in 1 hour. Okay, never mind. I wrote a lot. There we go. Thread. I wrote about Trump's plan with Putin and so on, and what we've heard. I talked about the speculation. There was a discussion first and foremost, and this is where I'm going to start. So this is a comment by the Resurgam. So Resurgam is like an analyst, a Ukrainian analyst that produces sometimes really interesting thoughts, and I'm kind of jumping on some of these thoughts as well, bouncing the ideas from him. So it's good. And he talked about certain interesting things. He talked specifically about that so far Trump's picks looks like that they are looking to be heavily focused on China. And this is great in my opinion because this gives some kind of discussional angle on Trump with regards to people in his cabinet, saying it's like, well, if China is so important for you, why would you let Russia win? Because it's going to be a big benefit to China. And so there's like a work that Ukrainian diplomacy can achieve. But more importantly, what Trump might find is a different Europe. Because while I bitch a lot about Europe, while I talk because I always want Europe to be better, but Europe has been changing. And Europe from 2016, 2020 is not the same Europe as it is now. So what might happen is when Trump approaches Europe, expecting that it's going to be run by some kind of weak man, he suddenly might realize that Europe has shifted. A lot of political power has been shifted towards Nordics and Poland and Baltics with their perception of Europe. And they are a lot more, let's just say, dedicated in their positions. Moreover, Macron and France, they are making like a very tight alliance with United Kingdom right now. They're forming and they're going deep into their negotiations to make some kind of bilateral alliance. Very, very close. Moreover, Germany, the weaker man of Germany, Olaf Scholz, right now is potentially going out. So what basically this sums up to is that Trump's expectations might be built on Europe from 2016 2020, and Europe from that time might not be the same Europe as it is now. So that is the first thing that is worth noting. Then I was talking about the Trump's plan. Now, there is no concrete things about Trump's plan, but there were generally floated around three major talking points. Talking point one, Trump basically calls Zelensky, calls Putin, says that he's going to flood Ukraine with weapons if Putin will not stop, says that he will cut off all of the aid to Ukraine if Putin agrees, but Zelensky doesn't agree. So Trump says that he's going to try to do that. Then he will try to get the European militaries to send their soldiers to the demilitarized zone that will be created along the current borders between Russia and Ukraine, the battle lines. And then Ukraine will be prohibited to join EU and NATO for 20 years. Those are the 3 points that are more or less concrete. And again, it was not official, it was just located. So it's not really a genius plan, like, because it has a lot of downsides. I'm pretty sure why it is dumb. So first and foremost, Putin is not given to accept any of this. Putin has shown that he has been rejected every off-ramp that has been offered to him. So what might happen is that Trump's tried to approach Trump, but instead Putin comes back and proposes something that was offered to Ukraine in the Istanbul process, the Istanbul negotiations that a lot of the Russian shills like to reference when they're talking about that, hey, you know, there were like agreements that were signed in Istanbul, and then supposedly it was like guaranteeing peace in Ukraine. It wasn't. It was basically a capitulation agreement because they intended that Ukraine cedes territory to Russia. They said that Ukrainian military is being reduced significantly, I believe up to the point of like 50 or 100,000 men strong. It reduces the number of heavy equipment, it reduces number of weapons, and get this the richest thing at all. So in case of the further conflict, the parties will not be signing any document for help to Ukraine. And any kind of help to Ukraine that will go to Ukraine can be vetoed by Russia. So Russia can prevent any help to Ukraine. It will have a veto power on what goes to Ukraine and what doesn't go to Ukraine. Like that plan that was supposedly flown in that Istanbul is basically surrendering Ukraine to Russia in full force. So there is like nothing that even remotely resembling peace was there. It's very, very clear that we need to understand this. And my expectations potentially is that Putin will kind of listen to Trump's plan and then push us like, yes, but why don't we also allow us to decide whether or not you will be allowed to help Ukraine or not. So it's kind of hilarious. That is one thing. So Putin is a lot more arrogant than Trump maybe expects and a lot of people expect. Secondly, it is important that Putin and his modus operandi was always to escalate. So when Trump says like for Putin do not escalate, I don't really buy it because Putin has always escalated. That's always his position. So whenever he's saying is like, okay, you're gonna threaten me that you're gonna send weapons to Ukraine, I double dare you, motherfucker. That's how usually Putin would respond. Not with words. In words he would say something, I don't know, yada yada yada, historical rights. No, he would just like try to do more. He would, I don't know, like try to put more pressure on United States and Ukraine and so on. Then we go into the silly part here I discuss. So what people fail to understand is how big Ukraine is. Now, when we go into like deep state map, when we go into deep state map and you see this map and you're like, well, it's okay, so it's not as much. But if you are stationing the troops on the border with Russia, if we supposedly take that it's European troops that need to take care of the border of Ukraine with Russia, we're talking about all of this thing. So it's all of this plus the border line. Currently, yes, here. And also, remember that Russia attacked through Belarus. So technically, there might be also some border with Belarus that need to be manned. But in this border, it is extremely long. It's actually over 2,200 kilometers long. or I think I also mentioned here in miles a little bit later. Oh no, it's a different thread. Yes, 1,367 miles. It's ludicrous amounts. So here I made some calculations because I took like the North Korean, South Korean demilitarized zone, and how many troops there are on that demilitarized zone. And on that demilitarized zone, if we take the density that is there, if there would be put troops on this front line, it's 1.3 million troops that would be required, European troops, again, if Ukrainians are prohibited, 1.3 million, so 1.3 million that would need to be fielded here of European troops on the border with Russia and Ukraine to secure this peace. How much would it cost? How much would it cost Europeans? That is one thing. Secondly, if there is a conflict, does it not mean that the European troops will be shot at? So you're also risking lives of Europeans now suddenly? That's the negotiated solution? That you're now starting risking not Ukrainian lives. So now you're going to be risking European lives. Which European state will agree to that? Third thing, this is great for Ukraine actually. This is not bad. Because you know, Article 5 in NATO is not that rock solid. There is a lot of asterisks that can be added to it, right? There is said that there should be a response and that the allies should help the country that got invaded and so on. But it's not as like concrete as like we're like going all in and like defeating the enemy and so on. There's a lot of like room for like a little bit of leeways there in that NATO Article 5. But this is better than NATO Article 5 because all of the European army, and the European army is, let me tell you, so the combat troops in the European army is in total just over 1.3 million people. You know, it's like, there was NATO 5. I mentioned here, it's like, but basically all combat capable European troops that are in European Union military right now would need to be deployed in Ukraine. This plan is, at least in the way that it's presented so far, and I cannot call it a fan, it's silly, stupid, unfeasible for any sides, and like it's just a lot of wishful thinking and delusions. Like that's the problem. Like the problem with a lot of MAGA, and I've told this like already plenty of time, the biggest problem that MAGA has, like yes, their arguments, their feelings, they're resonating with a lot of the population. They're resonating with the voters. So you win. And a lot of MAGA people are now feeling justified to promote their narrative, stating that like we were right. But the problem for the MAGA folks, even that you think that you're right, reality exists. And reality does not agree with your rightness. Yes, sentry guns, of course, yes. Let's just deploy robots, yeah, combat robots. And Mexico pays for that. We're going to build a wall in Ukraine. Oh, sorry. It's just... Are you on Blue Sky? Yes, I am on Blue Sky. My handle is at ukrainematters.bsqy.social. Yes. I'm going to post it in chat. There we go. So you have the link. All right, a couple of more questions. Let's answer. How long I've been yelling at you guys? I'm sorry for yelling. Like again, nothing personal. It's just there's a lot of things that I want us to do better in this community than the average in the world, and my expectations for you are very high. What if Zelensky doesn't agree? Yes. Then the South Korean status. Yes. What to expect from Trump administration? Yeah, we talked about it. Do you think it's still possible to prevent World War III? Yes, it's possible. Should Ukraine build more defenses? Yes. I'm looking for relevant questions. Isn't the US kind of obliged to protect Ukraine? Yeah, but Budapest Memorandum was there, but Budapest Memorandum is really, really vague. Budapest Memorandum, basically, the paper itself is worthless. What was relevant about Budapest Memorandum is the spirit of nuclear non-proliferation. Basically, in short, Budapest Memorandum, you can summarize it. US gave their word that if Russia invades Ukraine, US will be there to protect Ukraine. But it was like non-official level, non-official discussions, so it was not like a treaty or anything. And the biggest kind of lesson that is Ukraine and everyone else in the world learning is if you have nuclear weapons, keep them. If you want your country protected, you need to get nuclear weapons if you don't have any. That's the message that Biden's administration sent to the whole world. What's your insight about Ukraine missile program? What's the most promising to expect? They have 4 different types of missiles that's been developed. It's recently has been stated. Moreover than that, Ukraine has been kind of slow. There's been a lot of critique on the Ukrainian internal weapons producers. And Zelensky personally, really last year, at the end of last year, made like a lot of personal visits to a lot of these development agencies and essentially calling them out, stating that we've been financing you guys. Where is our long-range weapons? And a lot of Ukrainians in between themselves, when they're talking and asking from the long-range weapons on the allies, they are actually very, very mad at these agencies and the government, stating is like, well, where is our long-range weapons? We're asking about all of this from the allies, but where is our stuff? But that is not an excuse for us to not deliver, okay? Let's be very clear. What do you think if, example, Finland wants to send troops to Ukraine? Is it possible to do without NATO intervening? No, Arimo. Right now, there's that's a big taboo in NATO right now. So, and that's why I'm considering it might be reconsidered, because that taboo was there from, first and foremost, Scholz and Biden axis. Like, that's the axis that basically escalation management. It's the same guys that are also preventing Poland from shooting the drones that are flying into the territory of Poland, shooting them from the air, or Romania. Because there is like a statement, you must not escalate. It's the whole escalation management. I got a Cossack look going. Good for you, man. What is your proof that Tulsi is your paid and bought? Have you heard her speak? Like, literally 5 seconds of her speaking about the topic of Ukraine. If you find one word that she says that it's not the same that has been said by the Russian propaganda, I will give you a fucking gold medal. Like, it's incredible. It's like, but what is your proof that she's being paid off? It's like, because obviously we haven't proven that Russia is spending gazillions of dollars to get the pro-Russian voices going in US, right? Oh, right. Oh, right. Oh, my God. Remember that media? Oh, yeah. What happened with those guys that suddenly turned out? Oh, well, if we haven't proved it, that it's that nothing happens, right? How fucking naive are you? Firstly, I don't think you're for real. I think you're full of shit. But, like, let's not be naive here. Russia is spending incredible amounts on their propaganda campaign. And when I'm hearing, like, a Western politician using the talking points of Russians, like, it's all about NATO expansion or something like this, it's like the clearest giveaway. Like, she's basically saying she's a Russian propagandist or like a Russian paycheck without just saying she's on a Russian paycheck. And moreover, there has been intelligence insight in her. It's come on. Like, just like, come on. Like, that's not a for real. That's not a real question. What's your proof that Tulsi is paid? I asked a smart... Like, my problem with all of these fucking trolls, can you at least pretend to be smart? Please. Just some dignity, like, ask it, like, come on, I can do your job better for you. It's like, let's see. So the question was like, what is your proof that Tulsi isn't paying it both? So a better option would be stating is like, Tulsi says a lot of things, but I think she's a real patriot. And so far, all of the investigations that were done into her has shown that she has absolutely no connections. And moreover, I think she tails Russian propaganda. But I think it's only because I have direct insights, because I have the guy that is paying him. paying her, and he's not Russian. There we go. I don't know, something like this. But like, at least that even is more realistic than whatever. It's like, what is your proof? It's like, what is your proof? I want proof. I want to prove that Russian propagandist is a Russian propagandist. Jesus fucking Christ. Thank you, G, for all your content. Should Northern Amy asks, should Northern Europe, Poland, Baltics, Ukraine, UK create a more hardcore alliance instead of NATO in the near future, losing faith in NATO capability in real threat? Yeah. I mean, Amy, I don't think we need to create a new one. Like, the thing that we need to understand is, in NATO, US is not the owner of NATO. Okay. I want us all to understand. I know Donald Trump said a lot that supposedly NATO is some kind of his private club that the other countries have joined and they're paying to United States, but it's not what's happening. NATO is already an alliance. It is already an alliance. There has been like some issues with NATO not being able to function because of there wasn't unanimity, but there has been certain decisions made that allows to essentially create coalitions of the willing on the NATO framework. So there is a good chance that this coalition will exist. It's just going to be part of NATO framework. And a lot of things that are happening in NATO, and I know this for a fact, are just not public. Georgies is an ass. Yes, I am. Thank you for noticing. I am not a nice guy. I am not a very pleasant person. I am not here to stroke your egos and so on. I'm here for one thing and one thing specifically, is so we understand why Ukraine matters. So we understand why it is in our best interest to help Ukraine right now. There's a moral argument, obviously, like, you know, that Ukraine is a country that is there, been invaded by Russians and so on, and that is like the horrific, and that argument is valid, right? But that argument has already been made. You know, it's the most clear black and white war that I think of all times in the world. A lot of times the wars are like, you know, muddy gray areas. Like, look at the Israel-Palestine. Holy shit, I'm not even going to bother trying to touch it with like a 10-foot stick, just because like how muddy and weird and gray it is. And now people are going to be like in chats, whatever. It's like everyone is wrong there. Like in a lot of wars, that's how it is. Like, everyone is wrong. But invasion of Ukraine is like the blackest and whitest there is possible. Like, there's like absolute like ironclad divide line where like who is the good guy, who is the bad guy. And if people say like, well, I'm still like undecided or whatever, it's like, it's the biggest bullshit in the world. And I have zero considerations for people that are lying to me. I have zero tolerance for bullshit. My problem is people that say that they do support Ukraine. Because I think when people say they do support Ukraine, they need to fucking act like it. And it involves me. It involves, hopefully, this community. Because I've been blessed by you guys. And thank you so much for continuously watching this. Participating in fundraising. Doing all of these amazing help. Reaching out with suggestions. Reaching out with your work propositions and so on. Continue doing this. We need to continue doing more for Ukraine. Because it matters for us, not because of the ethical aspect only, but because it is really important for us to have our democracy, have our peaceful ways of life that we need to preserve. It's a challenge of our generation. It really, truly is. Because it is an existential threat of Russia. Ukraine is a proof of concept for their challenge to the world. Next challenge when it comes to us, if Ukraine loses, is going to be much more serious. And it's not going to be like just Russia invading one of the Baltic countries. It's going to be a lot more, and it's going to be a lot more threatening. We don't know the full scale of it, but believe me, they will try to do it because the proof of concept is going to work for them if we surrender Ukraine. That's why I'm focusing on what are we doing right now, how we can do more, how we can do better. That's why when people's like, oh, Georgie is an ass and so on. Yes, I am. That's how I am. Some people said that it's resonating with them. Maybe a lot of people really needed a voice out there that puts assholes that says like, oh, I'm a little bit undecided whether Ukraine should give territory or not, that needs to put them in their place. Maybe there was a need for that. I don't know. But you guys are watching me. I appreciate it. I am what I am. I'm not going to change. I'm going to try to do more. But don't expect me to be a nice person. Time. Let's see time. It's been 2 hours. Let's do last 5 questions and then we're gonna kick it off. Last 5 question. Well, if we support tradition, then it should be something about my stupid haircut or something. I'm gonna roll it because there's like 1,000 different questions more, and I'm gonna this one. Sorry for the mic. I will next time use this hand. Mario4691, what is your European country top list of countries that could improve the most in helping Ukraine? Like the country that has a lot to improve is on the top. Well, let's do it. Let's do it. So there is the Skill Institute for the World Economy, and they have been doing an amazing job. They have been tracking what is the help for Ukraine and how much help has been dedicated for Ukraine. So there is this Ukraine support tracker in their data hub. And in this support tracker, let's jump in here and we see, oh, there are the countries. So there we go. So number 1 country is Denmark, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Finland, Sweden, Poland, Slovakia. Slovakia, by the way, that's why I don't talk about Fico, despite his rhetoric being pro Putin. Slovakia still takes European money and sends weapons to Ukraine. So even with that situation, I'm fine with this. Netherlands, Czechia, Croatia, Belgium. I think this would be the cutting off point. I think around this point would be the cutoff point. Like Belgium, Norway, Germany, Bulgaria, France, United Kingdom, Austria, Luxembourg, Italy, Slovenia, and so on. I think a lot of these countries are a lot bigger and they are having a lot more dominant position in Europe, right? So I think a lot of these countries need to realize just how much more expensive it's going to be for us to face the threat ourselves of this axis of evils. So, and a lot of these countries, France, United Kingdom, Germany, Ireland, yeah, I mean, Ireland, that's like a whole another thing. Don't get me started. South Korea, all of these countries can improve. All of these countries can do more. If we get this at least to, let's say, let's say Sweden level. There we go. Sweden is a good cutoff. Sweden, Poland, like 1%. If all of the countries below Slovakia, Netherlands, I think it's also 0.3-ish. Let's say this. So all of the countries below Netherlands, if every single country of these after that matches 1%, okay, maybe not Taiwan, but not Turkey, but like European countries will, and maybe not Hungary, okay, I'm doing a lot of asterisks, matches 1% to Ukraine, it's going to be an incredible boost to Ukraine. Incredible boost to Ukraine. It's going to bring so much more, and it can almost surely cover any deficit left by US. So 1% of GDP. That is what it takes for us, for Europe to get there. There we go. Okay, that was actually a pretty good question. Thank you. Ian, hey dude, new to the channel, but I enjoy the coverage you give. I'm curious on your background. Could you give some details? Not trying to be meaning, but genuinely curious. Peace and love. Sure. So I am a Latvian. I'm from the Baltics. I was born in 1986, so in the Soviet Union. So I was born in the Soviet Union, and I lived through the collapse of the Soviet Union, like remembering certain things about it. And I lived like during the 90s and so on, and I've seen like decoupling of Baltics from Russia and so on. And we had like a major Latvian in Latvia. We had a major Russian population, and I actually hanged out with some of the Russians during my my time. I've studied in Denmark University. after I finished school and everything. I've studied business administration as my bachelor's, and as my master's, I finished the Aarhus University. It's like it was a university that was like in the top 100 universities in the world, but it's now completely fallen out. Like it's not as good anymore. But I moved to Denmark with like no money at all, absolutely zero. I had to find some kind of job. I was mostly washing floors and washing dishes. And at the same time, I was studying. I studied for my master's. I got my degree in business administration, economics, and information management. So like IT and data. And then I work in a professional sphere with regards to data administration, data handling. And after that, with regards to Ukraine, I've been to Ukraine first time in 2012. In 2012, I went to Crimea. Then in late 2013, the Maidan protest started, and I was very happy what was happening because Maidan was basically reawakening. When I visited Ukraine for the first times, like from 2012, there was a couple of visits that I made to Ukraine. Those times has shown me how essentially poor and rejected the Ukrainian people are, because their country was run by a bunch of oligarchs and Russian corrupt money. I didn't know that it was Russian corrupt money back then because I didn't study, but I saw like the absolute loss of dignity for a normal population. So when I saw the Maidan protests, they absolutely made sense for me, because I saw just like, and later we know that revolution is called now the revolution of dignity. And that's exactly why, because the population of Ukraine was basically run by a bunch of oligarchs and kleptocrats and corruption, and they rose up against it. But then something interesting happened. And then in 2014, Russia started claiming a lot of the propaganda narratives about what was happening in Maidan. That it was like supposedly like a violent turnover, that it's supposedly been like a far-right protest, and so on. And they described Ukrainian people not how I remembered my Ukrainian people when I visited Ukraine for many times. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I started making like notes. I started making like, for my next visit to Ukraine, I'm going to go and check. And I made like a checklist. And then Russia occupied Crimea. And at the moment there, I was like, man, that's not right. You know, it's like mostly because like I'm a Latvian, and Russia did take part of Latvia, and it's still holding it. Russia occupied part of Ukraine, and I didn't feel it right, but I was in Crimea, and Crimea was heavily Russian. I was like, maybe there is like some gray area. I don't know. You know, it's like I need to find out. And then I came to, I believe it was like late 2014 or like early 2015. I think it's late 2014. I came and I checked, like went to my checklist on the Russian claims, Russian narratives, Russian propaganda claims. Like that there was like supposedly like bullets, like a good claim, an example, that there was like supposedly bullets that were fired by the protesters because they had guns, and these bullets were stuck in the trees. So the protesters, they cut the trees, so then the bullets cannot be investigated. And then I come back and like, oh my God, the trees are there. Oh, they weren't cut down. As an example. So that checklist that was there, I went through this and I was like, I'm being lied to. I'm being lied to by Russian state propaganda. And then I was like, okay, so what is it really? And then everything kind of started coming together. Like for me, that's when kind of like my awakening started to happening. Like I knew about who Russians are. I knew that I don't really want to interact with them because like their culture is like disgusting and repulsive and so on. And they're really aggressive towards Latvians, towards our language, towards our history. Like a lot of them were constantly saying that we are Nazis and just you wait and Putin is going to take over. But like, you know, I didn't really pay attention to this. But after this happened, I started. So from 2014, I very, very closely like monitored every single thing that was happening there. I very closely monitored like all of the activities, statements by Russia and what is driving there. So all of the buildup, all of the situation all of the Russian troops actually participating in the war in Ukraine 2014, I followed that live with real commentary, with so-called behind the scenes footage. So like I studied all of the videos. I've been on the Russian social networks, so I would watch like all of these videos of soldiers like posting videos even back then in 2014 how they're torturing Ukrainians, and like all of the people is like, well, this is like obviously Russian soldier, right? Well, he has a video of how he's mutilating like a Ukrainian soldier right over here, and then everyone says like there's supposedly like some kind of civil war. It's like, yeah, but he's not wearing insignia. It's like, how is that an argument? It's like, so if you just take off insignia, suddenly you stop being a Russian soldier? And then like Russian tanks started flowing in. Russia used artillery to shoot at Ukraine. And at that moment, like it became absolutely clear. And that's kind of my background. So I've been following this since 2014 very, very closely. And my wife is Ukrainian. So when the war started, her family is actually from the north of Ukraine, from the region in Chernihiv, and they got occupied. So my family, on my wife's side, got into occupation, and they told us what was happening in occupation. And they even had it relatively light because they were not really interacting with Russian forces because they didn't get into that situation. But I had a friend in Bucha, and he told me stories about what was happening in Bucha because he was there. So at that moment, there is no redeeming anymore for Russians. Russia is a terrorist state. It's a disgusting, repulsive terrorist state. So when people say like, well, maybe we should consider doing something for Putin, some kind of a negotiated solution, I think that person doesn't have anyone's interest in mind except for Putin's. And here, again, I'm going to reference what I talked recently with my friend, and my friend is a little bit more kinder person to Russians than myself. He said like there's probably a lot of more like not pro-war Russia in Russia, which I don't believe, but he does. And he said like, so maybe stop of shooting is going to be better for them. And I was like, no, it's not. It's the worst thing that can happen. Because not only Putin's regime will not be deposed, now a lot more energized and radicalized regime will be in power for Putin. And he's going to repress all of these non-war, if they even exist. Again, I don't agree that they exist. These non-war Russians are going to be oppressed and going to be conscripted and going to be made sure that they will produce weapons to fight against other democracies in the world. So you're creating a situation that is going to make it even worse for that supposedly good parts of the Russian society that you're advocating. The best thing that can happen to Russians is that Russia loses this war. They understand, they must learn and understand that waging aggressive war against their neighbors is not good. They need to do what they need to do. They need to follow themselves. They need to reflect at who they are and what they did and where Putin led them and where they let Putin leading them. It must happen. And for that to happen, Russia must lose. So even if you are as deluded as my friend in this part of a question is, best thing that can happen to the Russian society and Russia in general is for Putin and Russia to lose this war, be thrown out of Ukraine and reflect on who they are and what they did. And that is not given that they're going to find a salvation, but it's giving them at least a window of opportunity. Signing some kind of ceasefire or mid-negotiations is going to put a big fat stop point for any possibilities for Russia to develop in a civilized way. Sorry for the long monologue, but it was an open question. All right, I think today was good. I think it's a lot more serious topic than I was expecting to end it off with, but I hope it gives you some perspective. Absolutely, yeah, we must work towards the victory. I would wish Ukrainians to fight. Ultimately, it is up to them to decide if they wanna continue fighting or they wanna stop. But for the benefits of everyone, for the benefits of us in Europe, for the benefits of whole world and democracy, Russia must lose. Must lose. Sorry. I love you. Slava Ukraini. Trust in Ukrainian armed forces. And see you next time.